Hi, I'm Stijn, and I'd like to invite you on a journey of becoming human again. This podcast explores what truly makes us human beyond money, beyond success. What can we learn from a cult leader, a chef, a stand-up comedian, or the CEO of a global enterprise? Each episode offers fresh perspectives to help you live and lead with more depth, authenticity, and fulfillment, and ultimately to rediscover what it means becoming human again. And today I'm really honored to have Ryan James Kemp in our podcast Becoming Human Again. Thank you, Ryan, for being here. You're calling from Mexico, aren't you?
I am, yeah. And it's really an honor for me to be here too, brother. So thank you.
And we met each other in Prague. I don't know if you remember how we met, but we were together in the Innovation Week, and I was standing at this counter of a coffee product from the Amazon, and you were standing behind me. And I could feel there was something, a nice energy behind me. And suddenly you said, now this is a nice product, Stijn. And we immediately got connected, and it felt so great when I turned around and I felt a really good vibe with you. And it turned out that we were in the same panel on AI and mushrooms and what it is to human beings. And we had some beautiful 2 days together. And I really appreciated the work that you do. And I think it is a great topic to dive a little bit deeper into today. So let's share that with the audience, what it is that you do. Ryan, dear folks, is a regenerative system change trailblazer or change maker. And he's shifting business worldviews and mindsets to embody the changes that the future is requiring of us by transcending the trapped conditions of business as usual altogether. He has different companies for that, Diva, and which we will dive into later. And he brings together various disciplines, including linguistics, animism, kinship, ecological economics, neuroscience, evolutionary biology, and traditional indigenous knowledge systems to orient us with new revolutionary approaches to system change, business, and law. And what I found very intriguing, Ryan, when I met you, was when you were telling me, sharing the stories that you have been traveling all over the world for 55 countries for 15 years and that you visit a lot of unknown places with a lot of the truly indigenous people who shared a lot of wisdom with you. And I think that makes you the perfect guest for this podcast, Becoming Human Again, because the knowledge and the wisdom that you acquired there, you have transformed it into a new way of thinking, a new way of acting and being in this world that is rapidly changing. So the old and the new together. So Ryan, was my introduction a bit correct, or what is there to add that you would say, like you, or is there something specifically from your background that you say, well, this is what I do and who I am?
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful introduction. I have somewhat of an issue with the word new,
Mm,
unless it's with a K,
mm,
because, Cristobal Colon, otherwise known in his anglicized name as Christopher Columbus, used the word new a lot. And as my uncle used to say, if you find something in my house, it's mine. You can't find something that's already here in my house.
mm,
So this word new for me is really interesting because the new earth, the new age, the new paradigm, the new whatever we want to say. But really, is anything new or is it novel? And is it being utilized or created with in a different way? So for me, I like to use the word new with a K
yeah.
because, and this is also why I don't say that I have a mission, because I don't really want to be a missionary, but I do have intentions and I do work within the systems and the relational architecture of how they're built so that we can analyze, is this actually the material that we want to continue to build with moving forward? Or do we have to alter the scaffolding of the structure as opposed to just optimize the external aesthetic of the building? And a lot of the systems change and things that I work within, which I don't use that phrase very much. I use systems revelation, and we can get into that if you want. But I'm not really interested in optimizing collapsing structures. I'm more interested in laying the infrastructure of something that is already here encoded within the earth, encoded within ancestral knowledge systems, and wisdom, knowledge and wisdom being two different things. You can have a lot of knowledge, but if you don't have the wisdom to use it, you forget the meaning of why you have the knowledge. So by utilizing both of these things, and everything included and encoded in the documents of nature, as the mamos in Colombia would say, we can orient and build in accordance with life, which is where things become truly sustainable, truly resilient, and truly equipped for the future. Because the future is not different than the past. And in Hawaii, they have a phrase, ikawa ma mua, kawa ma hope. The future is in the past is in the future. And when we recognize this, and what it means to be a human sharing a root word with humus and with humility, when we orient to what it means to be a human here as a keystone species, we begin to get a little bit of an idea about how we can utilize our purpose and our skills and our gifts to create an economy nested within nature as opposed to overlaid on top of it. So I'll just add about that much for now to the introduction, and back over to you.
How did your life start? I mean, what was the moment that you realized like I need to travel or and I need to learn more, or what was your intention of going out there?
Well, I always, for whatever reason, I don't really know the reason, but I had
Mm-hmm.
this desire to explore. And then one
Mm,
of my best friends growing up in high school ended up moving to Mexico and then to India, and I wasn't able to do that because I was on the Division 1 baseball team. So they prevented me from studying international business, which is actually what I wanted to study, probably because I just wanted to go and explore the world. But
mm,
then he came back like wearing an Indian dhoti and like looking like Jesus Christ or something, you know?
mm,
And I was like, "Whoa, dude, what happened?" And he's like, "India," you know? And then later, as I evolved in this Division 1 baseball team, I recognized through the assistance of some of the fungal kingdom that this dream that I had been carrying throughout my life wasn't my dream. It was my parents' dream. So I decided to quit the team. I broke up with my partner, who was also an athlete at that time, and I found a way to move my credits to a university in Hong Kong when I was 20 years old. So I went there and studied Chinese philosophy, like Lao Tzu, Meng Tzu, Confucius,
mm.
all these people, and then also international finance, so I could weave in the credits as I was studying having a financial degree. And at that point, when I went to Hong Kong, it just ignited something in me that the reality that I thought that I inhabited being one reality was not one reality, because the reality in Hong Kong was different. Their way of relating with the world was different. Their way of communicating was different. Their way of being in life was different. And then you go to Thailand and it was different. And then you go to Singapore and it was different. And then all of a sudden, when I returned to Boston, people said I had reverse culture shock. And I said, no, I think I have reverse lack of culture shock, because there's so much culture and alive ways of people connecting with Earth through their given place in these other countries in Asia versus
Then
a
in the
place like,
States.
right. So there was actually this absence of something that got me really excited and feeling connected and feeling inspired.
Mm-hmm.
So I then immediately moved my classes again to Spain to finish my university. And then when I was 22, I moved to the jungle of Cameroon on the border of Nigeria for my first job, which was a social entrepreneurship impact job looking to ameliorate 50% of the food waste that was occurring in the farming confederations of the breadbasket of the country. And after that experience, I mean, good luck, you know, being out there for a year and then coming back in and trying to have someone sit you in a cubicle.
What happened?
Well, when I went over there, I thought I knew something. You know, here's me, the white college graduate who is coming to bring you, impoverished nation, some solution that I can give you because I studied, but I don't live in the life that you live. But here's me trying to tell you what to do. because I'm educated and therefore you're not, right? So there's already a hierarchical colonial energy that was deeply enrooted in me that I didn't even know was there. This coloniality is rooted within most of the development. It's even, I mean, it's encoded in the word development, right?
Is
Because
that one of the biggest constraints that we still carry this for, that we still carry deeply embedded roots of colonialism in our bodies for the modern world to change and to get embedded into what you say, the humus, into the nature again, and what it is, what life is really about? Is that one of the biggest constraints, or are there any other?
yeah, I mean, that's definitely a big constraint, and I'm going to differentiate
Mm,
colonialism from coloniality.
mm,
Colonialism is something that happened in the past.
mhm,
Coloniality is the ripple that continues forward through those experiences,
yeah,
through those worldviews, through those mindsets, through the somatic realm, and through the traumas that have
mm.
continued to be created throughout time, not only within humans, but within the land itself. So within coloniality, we can call this the unholy trinity: mechanization, reductionism, and separability. These three things are triangulating the energy of coloniality. Mechanization, meaning the earth is a machine, right? Which is where the word technology comes from, the techno logic, the machine logic. So earth is a machine, and therefore we can utilize technology or the logic of the machine to optimize and utilize and extract what we want from this machine that is built of parts, not amplifying the whole, hence compartmentalization. So I can go and study an elephant by cutting off of its foot and looking at the foot, even though the elephant's dead. And there's this scientific methodology where you compartmentalize and chop things up to try to study them or take them out of their environment, right? Hence the phrase, for me, being relatively a heretic. People
Is
say,
that what started with the human beings as well, when we started with science and medical science to chop off and to investigate each part of our body separately? Could you compare it a little bit like that, and then with the technical part on the human body, on the humanity itself?
well, there's many different types of science.
Mm,
Yoga is a science. It's an experiential, observational science that is gathered its information through testing and the scientific method through
mm,
thousands of years of how to work in a synergistic, holistic capacity with the body and the spirit and the mind and the emotions as one intertwined unit. However, like Francis Bacon and a lot of these other people like Newton, when they came around and they were talking about science, it was about parsing out. And
yeah.
I think Francis Bacon may have said like torturing out the secrets of nature. Like it was this very aggressive language. So I just also want to just differentiate here science, right? There's different types of science. So a lot of the work that I do now is knowledge systems interfacing, because it's not about getting rid of either science. First of all, it's about
Mm,
acknowledging that another one exists and that there's a lot of validity to this because it's been around for a very long time, you know. But how do they communicate, seeing that the Western science, for example, and my teacher Kumu, he says, be careful when you say Western because we live on a sphere. So there's always someone more West than you. But how do we utilize Western, Occidental science and original people's indigenous science? And this is the framework of two-eyed seeing, looking out of one eye with Western Occidental intelligences and ways of knowing, technological, and the other out of indigenous or original people's intelligences or ways of knowing, I would say ecological. There's also technology in there. So, how do you look out of both so that you recognize that the science is not one thing? Just like psychology is not one thing. There's many different methods and ways of coming to knowing, which can be called epistemologies. So, yeah, there's a lot in here. Is the human inherently separate from their environment or inherently compartmentalizing themselves out of nature? I mean, at least how some of the grandmas put it, they say, well, the corn didn't forget who the corn is, the deer didn't forget who the deer is, the whale didn't forget who the whale is, but the human forgot who the human is. So within this forgetting, we've dismembered ourself from the natural environment, potentially starting with the word nature, right? Which some of my elders say is the most, they say that's some of the most insidious words in the English language is nature, because when you announce and enunciate nature, you're already thinking that it's something that's not you.
Separate from you.
Whereas where people tell me, I want to reconnect with nature, within that sentence, you're saying you're not connected with nature.
Absolutely.
So I don't think it's inherent within human beings, which is why I don't use the word Anthropocene anymore, because the anthropos, there's certain people causing a lot more damage than other humans, right? So to group everybody in this same boat of extraction and damage is massive generalization and also not fair.
So, Ryan, tell me, I thought it was a beautiful example that you used with the grandmother who said a whale remembers that knows he's a whale, and that we have forgotten what it is to be a human. What have we forgotten? What don't we remember?
What don't I remember?
As a human species, what have we? Because you make the analogy with a whale knows he's a whale, but we don't know what a human is anymore. So, what is it, according to you and according to what you have learned from old elderly?
Well, some people still remember, but
Mm,
as a society obsessed with progress and growth, and I never tell people that we're not progressing, that really triggers people. They say, but what about all the progress? I say, no, you're right. We're progressing towards destruction, because progress is a neutral term. It just is a direction. And funnily enough, for people in the United States, the term progress, if you were to use pros and cons, the other side is Congress. So
interesting.
I just think that's funny that the government's called Congress. Yeah. So within these things that we've forgotten, and I'm very specific when I say remember and dismember
Mm,
rather than remember and forget, because
yeah.
what we've forgotten is not a concept. It's not like I lost my car keys and just can't find them.
Mm-hmm.
There's my purpose. There's my ancestral connection. I'm back with nature. It's not like this concept,
Mm,
but it does take the light switch to be turned on at first, but then it's an embodied process of remembering yourself to the tapestry of life, because we've been dismembered from the tapestry of life. So, very simply, right off the bat, I can say that every single time that someone says human beings on earth, that phrase already is separate, right? Because we're
yeah.
on her. She's a backdrop to our human drama and exceptionalism. We're just on her,
Mm,
you know? Like one of my uncles, he said, hey, peace on earth. Ryan, is that a good thing? I'm like, I think so. He's like, nah, man. Peace with earth. Peace as earth. So part of what we've forgotten or been dismembered from is the community membership agreement that we had as human beings. And the membership agreement, number one, is reciprocity. Why? Because when you're born, you breathe in, right?
mm,
The reciprocity agreement is that you breathe back out. That's that's the life-giving breath. So within that reciprocity agreement, you've just signed that. You've signed with your very breath reciprocity. That's a hoop. That's a circle. So when we forget that we're in the circle of life, and we forget we signed a membership agreement with the other members of the community, some cultures say the relatives, yeah? Like in Lakota, mitakoye oyasin, to all my relations. Albert Einstein called that relativity, yeah?
mm,
The relatives. So when you can be within this membership community, there are certain agreements, like when you go to the gym, you know, don't drop the weights, don't be an ogoboga, don't steal someone's water, don't
mm,
go in there and just poop on the floor, don't throw trash everywhere. There's membership agreements when you have a gym
mm-hmm.
membership. There's membership agreements when you're a human being, because we're in a community of members. And when you're
Yeah.
remembering yourself into this community, it requires a relationship. So
Mm,
reciprocity and relationship are two things that we've
yeah.
optimized ourselves out of.
I love when you use the word remembering because in one of the work that you do is the original living responsibilities, and you have a beautiful website on that. And I love this term because you compare it with the sustainability goals and the
Mm.
inner development goals, and you specifically mention that you don't want to use the word goals. And I think maybe you can
Or
elaborate a
development.
little, or development for that matter. And so, what what are these terms? And I truly love the process that you describe on your website with starting with remembering, because one of these words is remember the wisdom of the heart. Well, let's start with, which is also a concept that I use in my book, The Wisdom of the Heart. But let's start with the original living responsibilities. What is this concept? I found it truly fascinating. And what does it mean for the modern world? And how can we implement it?
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing this up.
Mm,
So it was a very intentional process, not a mission, but an intentional one. And I worked with the elders of this beautiful group of beings called the Earth Elders. So the name in itself, original origin being in that word, yeah. Original living responsibilities. So we got rid of development and goal, as you've highlighted. Development being a hierarchical colonial term within a blueprint of there are some who are less developed and some who are more.
there's the separation again.
Yeah, exactly. There's a
Yeah.
ranking. There's a transactionality. And then there's goal. Goal, interestingly enough, in Old English means limit, but goal also is based within the fact that you have to continue to achieve something linearly to get to somewhere that you're not. So within the name, the original living responsibilities, it's acknowledging that there are inherent responsibilities given to humans through the origin, which we fulfill with our way of living. So this is different than in my teacher Mendahi, who's one of the leaders of the original living responsibilities and the convener of Earth Elders. He says, there's a big difference between the good life and the good living. You know, the good life, you have like a nice car, you have a nice couch, like you work your way to get to the good life. You know, even Miller High Life, all these beers, whatever, you know. Oh, this is the good life, you know. But are you living well? The good life is a noun. It's a destination, it's a goal. And when you get there and then you realize that you missed the whole journey to get to the goal because you've been reacting and not responding, you look back on your life instead of forward into what you've created with your living. And you're a
Mm,
little bit like, huh. It's like when you go hiking, right? For me at least, like let's say, and this hit me when I was in Ireland climbing up this beautiful mountain, and I think it was County Mayo. And I was walking and the trail was really beautiful, but I was focused on the peak of the mountain. And then I got to the peak of the mountain and my partner was like, I'm cold. I was like, all right, well, let's go back down then. So we were at the peak, we were at the goal for 10 minutes, but I hiked for 2 hours.
yeah.
So where was I oriented towards? Was I living well? Was I hiking in a present capacity, or was I focused on the goal and by the time I got there I forgot the
Yeah.
journey of how I got there? So all of this is baked within the name.
Yeah.
Within this process, as you mentioned, these 5 steps: remembering, feeling, listening,
Mm,
integrating with reciprocity, and transcending. This is an epistemological or an onto-epistemological, meaning a way of being and a way of coming to knowing. That's a process of how we can orient ourselves back with the ancestral future by listening to the human and the more than human and feeling the depths of what we need to create in accordance with life so that we transcend time and space and build things actually for the 7th generation and beyond, while honoring the ancestral generations that came before us, which my teacher Kumu Ramsey would say is true alignment. Because we come from people, right? We have roots, all of us. Like one of some of the moms, they're like, raise your hand if you weren't born from a woman. No one can raise their hand.
no.
So you can't be self-made entrepreneur. Who made you?
Who made you? That's an interesting question. That's a good one. I truly love this one. because it's what I hear a lot of entrepreneurs and CEOs say, I'm self-made, and it has a kind of, in our
It did.
society, it's like it requires respect for in a weird kind of a way, because he could never done it himself. You always need other people, even in the current circumstances. But it's beautiful how you said you were made by your mother and your father, and they were made by others, and they are nourished by Mother Earth and what the planet gives you. I
Exactly.
recently heard someone saying, your body is just a compilation of all the fruits and the meat and the plants that you eat. It's not a
Yes.
body, it's what you eat.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
is a body, but it's one level of the embodiment process, right?
Mm,
Because so getting back into the self-made thing, because we're going to
yeah.
weave it all in here, but this is the alignment, yeah, is that we give our ancestors purpose. So if we're out of line, which is a word in English
Hmm.
that you mean if you're misbehaving, get
Yeah.
back in line. If you're out of line, your ancestors don't have anything to be proud of because you're not in alignment. And then the future generations are looking back trying to see where you're at. So when you step back in line with the ancestors and the future generations, which is the true meaning of seventh generation, it's not just forward thinking. We must create for the seventh generations. But the seventh generations is three generations before you that you came from. You inherit epigenetically, they've proved this. You inherit their gifts, their traumas, their conditions, their ways of
Mm,
being, and you're directly linked with them. You then create, are in the middle, one, two, three, four, and then three generations into the future, they will be directly impacted by you. So the seventh generation is 313. That's the way that it moves, acknowledging our roots and the fruits.
yeah.
So part of the issue what's happening right now in futures thinking and all of these sort of things that are only looking forward, I'm self-made. Who birthed you? Who taught you English? Who is that first mentor who gave you advice? Who is the person who took a chance on you and allowed you to have their first contract with them?
Mm,
What food did you eat? You breathe air all the time. Like you had a dog, right? That dog showed you love. Like who's self-made? That word is impossible unless
yeah.
you're according to the big S self, which is what they talk about in yoga. There's the small s,
Yeah.
the individual, which already is a myth. Carl Jung talks about the individual or the individuation, which is uniqueness. Individuality, impossible. Individuation, uniqueness, is valid. So, unless it's the big S self, which is the whole, which is what it means to be mindful, to embrace the full mind, when you're doing these things in accordance with the self, sure, you can be self made. You're made from the self, but not isolated through you, right? So this is deeply, deeply, deeply important because the individual, one of my uncles, he said, "You want to know the biggest multi-generational trauma that there is, Ryan?" I'm like, "Please tell me." He said, "The I."
I from I am.
Yep, the I from I
And
am
why
an
is
individual
that?
because it disconnects you from the we.
Mm,
And in English, there's a word illness and there's a word wellness. One of them has I, one of them has we.
no, this is a good one. I never heard this one.
Yeah, I got a lot of good
Illness,
ones.
yeah, illness is with I, and wellness is with we. I sometimes say, I am you and are me, and we are we.
There you go. In Guatemala, with the Mayans, they would say in la quech, which means you are my other me.
Mm,
That's their way of greeting each other. They're acknowledging the diffractive mirror of our existence that is required for all of us to be here. And that I can only know
yeah,
myself through you, right? Because
I
I'm,
loved it when you, with the word responsibility, to come a little bit back on the word responsibilities and the self-made. For me, it is also a call to taking ownership of what change that you can make or what you can do. And it is more a calling than not to do something, but to connect with the reciprocity that you just mentioned, rather than striving from the self-made or from the I. It is this responsibility towards the we. Is it? I
yes.
love that.
And there's a difference between responding and reacting.
Mm,
A reaction is a conditioned way of approaching reality that is not valid with the current moment. So you duplicate a pattern that is out of sync with the time that you're in. But when you
I was,
respond, you're present enough without the conditionings that have imprinted upon you so that you don't have to reply to something in the moment that is not real to that moment, right? And this is why the future and the past are directly connected, because if you don't liberate the past from the conditions of coloniality in this sense, right? Then we duplicate the same patterns that we've inherited into the future, therefore not enabling the future to truly come in a novel way. Because it's just projecting the past through the now into the future through our creations. And I give the example of and I love them dearly, my mother and my sister, where I asked my mom, I'm like, Mom, why do you always worry? She said, well, I'm just a worrier. I'm like,
mm,
no, don't worry. I'm in the mountains of Colombia. It's good. Don't worry. She's like, no, I'm just a worrier. I'm like, but there's nothing to worry about. Well, my mom was a worrier, actually.
mm,
I was like, oh, interesting. Was her mom a worrier too? She's like, yeah, it's just a Jewish mom thing. They're all worriers. I was like, okay. And then my sister is always like, I worry so much. So is my sister different than my great grandma? Has the past and the future really become novel? Or is this my sister carrying the projections inherited through epigenetics forward into the future so that the past worry is still now? So for me, if I look at that, I don't know if that's the future. It looks like the past to
yeah,
me.
yeah, exactly. And you know what I find really fascinating I work on an individual level with people, and then you see that you can, with when you raise consciousness and come to see what kind of behavior you have, and you might want to change it. How does that work on a more global level? The work that you do with these deeply rooted, like we spoke about, the colonialism and all these. Is there still a chance that we can break these patterns that are so deeply rooted with all over the world and within a lot of people?
Yes.
How? A $1 million question.
Well, I can only share my experience.
Please
So
do.
that's what my teachers told me there. They said, you got to go experience life,
Mm,
because if you just read about it from other people's perspective, then all you're sharing with people is a claim.
yeah.
But if you go and experience it and you learn, then you can then share what you learned through your experience. And that's what no one can take away from you. No one can ever take away your experience. So I only speak from my experience. Therefore, I only can work with the grist for the mill, to quote Ramdas, that I've been given and that I've entered into, to see how I've changed, to see how I've revealed the imaginal cell of the butterfly from the caterpillar in my own being. Because the butterfly DNA is within the blueprint of who we are, which is within the blueprint of the caterpillar. But a lot of people don't want to go through that liquefaction phase into the cocoon where the caterpillar melts
Mm,
and loses its entire identity to enter into a different state of being that it had no idea that it might come out of the melting cocoon into, right?
so
So
we all stay in
behavioral,
the cocoon? Is that what we are doing now? Or a lot of us, including me,
well, there's something
sometimes?
interesting about the way that the speed of our society functions is that it tries to
Mm,
rush people out of the cocoon so that they can become
yeah.
functional and that they can survive in the world that's rapidly moving, where if you don't adopt AI, you're in the past. And if you don't position yourself, but like you're still in the liquefaction phase. So then there's people who are half liquefied, half caterpillar, half butterfly, like crawling out of the cocoon, sharing about how to be a butterfly when they're not a butterfly or a caterpillar. And then other people are listening to them, right? Thought leaders. I don't use that word. I say thought rememberers. I'm more in that group. Yeah.
Hmm.
Because there's a difference in my teacher, Dr. Tusi, he just shared, good leaders lead, great leaders heal. So the majority of who I see as thought leaders, that's not leadership. Where are they leading us to? Are they taking care of everyone else and then themselves? Are they taking care of them and maybe a couple other people? Because the leaders that I'm with, if we go in the sweat lodge and there's a little bit of water that they want to share, they drink last. And if everyone else drank all the water, then the leader doesn't get any, you know? So we've lost our conception of leadership too. So what I share globally is my experience of how I've begun to transmute my own patterns into states of creativity, states of connection, and states of expanding the worldview and the awareness that the mind is set in. Because a lot of people just like to look at mindset, and I'm like, well, it's in the word. The mind is set. It's set in the worldview, which is the lens that you don't often recognize that you're looking through, which is why if you asked a fish if it was in the water, it would say, what are you talking? So when we adjust the aperture of our consciousness through a worldview, the mind is liberated from its set. And then you don't have to think outside of the box, because as Bio Akamonofe said, thinking outside of the box is exactly how boxes think. Yeah. So this
That's a
is the work
nice
that I
one.
this is the work that I do. I just
Mhm.
crack the box and then we take all the wooden pieces and we put it in the fire. And then we have a little fire and we warm our hands and we talk. But there's no more box. But we're back around the fire. We're back around the only element that human hands can't manipulate, that human hands can't harm. The fire with no end. The one that is the grandfather of all of life, the fire. And then there's the mother of all of life, the grandma, water. Those two came together. Those are your two main teachers. Those are your elders. Learn from them too, not just the humans, you know?
Can you share us a little bit more about the wisdom of the heart that you have set out in the original living responsibilities within the first phase of remembering? Because I particularly like to work with the heart. It has a beautiful energy, and I think it is the energy of the heart is connecting everything. Oh, it makes the demoiselle cranes that leave Japan and they go over the Himalayas. They follow this energy, this vibe. And so I was wondering, what does that mean for you related to the remembering? Is that the energy of the heart that knows what was and what is and what will be?
Yeah, it's good that I talked about the fire because the heart is related to the fire. The heart is also a mind. The gut, the na'au, the narika, the intuitive mind.
Hmm.
The heart is a mind, and then this is a mind.
Mm,
We've forgotten that we have three of them,
mm.
and one of them is closer to the earth than the other. So if you want to listen and utilize the mind that's connected with the earth, you are what you eat. Yeah, in your literal gut biome.
Yeah, in your gut.
And if you're eating monocropped GMO foods, then of course your mind will be monocropped GMO mind. There's your first mind, yeah? Then you have the second mind, the heart. And this is not for people who think that the heart is an organ, it is. And there's a spiritual heart called the Hridayam. So this mind is connected with the shared life force of all of life, right? Because, like Bob Marley, one love, one heart. Everybody
One
has a heart.
love heart.
Everyone has a heart. Even animals have a heart. Plants even have a heart. Everything has a heart. So when you work from the heart, you're working from the interconnectivity of all things.
Mm,
You're also working from the place where the fire lives, where the spark of the spirit exists, which is why when you're around a fire, something happens. And they've even studied that stem cells are generated when you're near a fire recently. So when
that's
you're within
really
this, yeah, it's a recent study they've performed.
okay.
So this wisdom of the heart, wisdom, yeah, not knowledge. So the mind has a lot of knowledge. You learn things. But the word knowledge is from gnosis, and gnosis means a way of knowing through your experience.
Mm,
It's a bodily knowing. Like they say in India, reading about water will never quench your thirst. And here we are reading about water,
mm.
thinking that our thirst will be quenched. That's not wisdom. Knowledge doesn't quench the thirst. Wisdom quenches the thirst. You have to know why the knowledge is important. So the heart embodies that wisdom. No, I got some books too. The books are great. Books are great. But
Yeah.
and The mamos, when we're in Colombia, they say, Ryan, why don't you read the book of that rock? I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, that's a
Book of the Rock.
document. That's a document. Los documentos de la naturaleza, the documents of nature. That's a book. The water is a book. The tree is a book. Can you read it? Do you have to cut down a tree and turn the tree into paper and a pencil to write about the tree in a book, or do you want to learn from the tree? So we have all these proxies to try to get to information. This is what the mind does. And the mind thinks about life. Yeah. Like Ramdas says, every time you think about life, you're one thought away from life. But the heart
Oh, I love
feels
this one.
life. The heart feels life. It's with it, yeah? Because the heart doesn't think, the heart knows. The heart feels. So when we're trying to think about things, there's a problem. Why? Because when you think about it, you don't feel it because your mind doesn't feel, which is why people can just say, oh, I'm going to slowly taper off my pollution of the river 5% per year until we get to net zero by 2050. It's like, if you felt the river, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't think about how to do something because you would feel it, and the feeling would motivate you into the reality where you then utilize the mind to create for the feeling. And what we're doing now in India, they say the mind is a terrible master, but a brilliant servant. And we have masterminds.
Absolutely.
We don't have master hearts.
I love when you speak about the feeling of the river because I think we often make the mistake of mixing feelings, a deeper feeling, an inner knowing with emotions. So what is that according to you why we stop feeling and making that deeper connection with a tree or with a plant or what is needed with ourselves?
Why would I make a connection with something that's not alive? That's in the
That's a
worldview,
good
right?
one. Why would I make a connection with something that is not alive?
That tree, like some people are like, oh, that tree's conscious, but not like me. That cow's conscious, yeah, but I eat them anyway because they're not conscious like me. I'm more conscious than them. We're back in the
In the
development,
hierarchy and in the development.
which in anthropocentrism, which is rooted in separability, anthropocentrism or human exceptionalism thinks that humans are the most evolved species here on the planet.
Yeah.
I said in the planet. So actually, we're the youngest. You can look at that two ways. All of evolution led to us. Ta-da! Or we're the youngest species. We have the most to learn. So the elders say, that's great. We have the most to learn.
Is that where the term humility you
Exactly.
because we are the youngest on this planet?
We're the youngest and we require everything else to be here for us to live, right? So
This
like a
is really
plant,
interesting because we have all been brought up with Darwin, with the evolutionary theory that we come from the apes and that we have been evolving so good into what we are now. And
yeah,
actually, it's completely the reverse.
it's the reverse, which is because when I say in my description, which you read,
Yeah,
evolutionary biology,
yeah.
what I do is actually subvert evolutionary biology because it's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of the one deepest in relation. Yeah. And this is also rooted in Maslow. And what a lot of people
Wait,
don't
wait,
know
wait,
about,
wait, because I love this. You survive the deepest in relation. When you're in a relation with what surrounds you, with Earth, with then you survive, or you continue, or you evolve, or you grow, or you just stay.
all of them. But the point here, that at least the way I've learned, the
Yeah,
point is not survival,
yeah,
right? The point is evolution. This is a school. Yeah.
yeah.
Earth is a school. Humans forgot. That's part of what they forgot. That we're here to learn. We're here to enable life to continue and evolve. With our anthropocentric human exceptionalist view, we think we're the peak of evolution and that creation just stopped with us. What a crazy myth. We're it. Thanks, God. We're the best. Hey, we won. Creation stopped. That's it.
Mm.
No,
So what's next
li-
for us, you think? Or
well,
what,
life is still creating. So we forgot how to tune some of us forgot how to tune ourselves in with the recognition that we're in a school and we're here to evolve. This is why net zero for me is so silly,
Net
because
zero
it's
meaning?
like businesses want to hit net zero carbon
Oh, yeah,
by
yeah, yeah, yeah.
2030, 2050. But what they're
Mm,
getting to is the floor, not the ceiling. Like net zero is the base.
mm,
Sustainability is the base. That's the floor
yeah.
from which we evolve, not from which we survive. Maybe now we're a little bit messing with on the survival level because we've forgotten all of these ways of knowing, right? But this is also what I wanted to share about Maslow, is that here we are as humans thinking that the whole point of our life is to get to self-actualization. Once again, little less self, right? Later, Maslow came back. He did some good stuff. He came back and he made the next tip of the pyramid self-transcendence. So that's better, right? At least he came back. What a lot of people don't know is that the pyramid of hierarchy came from the Siksika, the Blackfoot nation of what's currently called Canada, and self-actualization was at the base of the teepee, not the pyramid.
Okay.
So you had to build your life from the thing that Maslow said is the point of our life.
Oh, how did it come to that change? Why did we turn it upside down?
Because of the individualized separability of modernity and the way of thinking that it's all about us, which creates illness, which is when you start to go into all these different medical systems like Ayurveda, when they say that the first stage of disease is accumulation. And here we are as our whole economic system is based on accumulating, not sharing, not distributing. So, like the illness, literally, we are in a disease formation with our economic system that imprints the conditionality of, what was it, Homo economicus. Have you heard of this?
Yeah,
The
we are
economic human
products. Yeah.
that is optimizing its own self-interest, small s self. So all of these things that we're talking about, these are creating conditions that we need to survive from,
Mm,
as opposed to learn from them, not try to fix them all the time. This happened, fix it. This happened, fix it. Sea level rise, fix it. This happened. Like, why don't we just stop and listen and build the conditions where we don't have to continue to just plug all the holes in the boat? And then we can evolve beyond the conditions that we continually have to fix. Which is why the problem solution binary is such a problem, because every single time you have a problem, you're going to have a solution, and then you're going to have another problem again.
mm,
And the next thing you know, you're fixing everything as opposed to listening to why the problems exist and then enabling the conditions for the problem to not arise, which is where the phrase, everyone's looking at the elephant in the room. And my uncle says, but what about the room? Why is no one looking at the room? Why is no one looking at everyone else who's looking at the elephant in the room? Why aren't we looking at the city and the truck that got the elephant here from the savannah, where we're trying to study the elephant in a room when the elephant is a communal creature in Africa, and we're
mm,
trying to study it in a room? We're not even looking at the same elephant. It's a shadow of what the elephant
yeah.
was. Like there's all of these conditions and processes that brought the elephant here. So why don't we stop looking at the elephant?
So, in your work that you do, what is it? Where do you see solutions or evolutions or changes that are absolutely necessary for us to make?
Yep. So Donella Meadows from MIT, systems scientist from a reputable institution, says that worldview is the strongest lever of systems change. This is a Western scientist, yeah. So for me, what worldview is the energetic infrastructure of relation that enables us to architect a home that is beneficial to progressing towards evolution and beauty. So, right now, part of the big issue in one of the talks that I gave in Prague, iteration, innovation, or disruption,
I love that
are we,
concept, by the way.
and it was kind of a little heretical, right? Because I'm at Innovation Week. So, but
Well,
most
they
of what we're
allowed you to
doing,
be there and to express it.
Right, because it was innovative.
Yeah.
So, iteration, if you don't change the worldview, you just continue to iterate. So, for example, carbon credits is the example that I gave in the talk. We're creating carbon credits, which is the commodification and monetization of nature, to try to solve the problem that was created through the commodification and monetization of nature. That's a duplication, that's an iteration. So within this, why is it a duplication? Because we're in the same worldview. So when you lay the worldview shift as the premier, as the first way to begin to shift the systems, you can then alter the trajectory of how they grow. But until you do that, you're just going to duplicate things. Like they say in Thailand, same, but different.
I love this concept that you bring up of the monetization. Recently, I was with the Bedouins in Egypt, and when they have some pain, some muscle pain or something, they just give each other a massage for free. Just my shoulder hurts, and suddenly one of the guys or the other man, they just start massaging. And I remember when I came back, I was like, okay, I need a massage, and I go, and you pay 150 euros or something for a massage, which is actually, it made me realize how, and it's a perfect term that you use, how monetized and how everything has become a commodity, while when you reconnect and remember, and it is perfectly human, natural human behavior actually, to heal each other in a very basically way.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing this term here.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, this is what the original living responsibilities is, right? It's a worldview transformation system and process to connect organizational strategy and design with bioculture. So, bioculture is where biology and culture are one. Yeah. So, you don't have to reconnect with nature because the culture is an emergent property of nature. So, people are a shape of the earth, as John Trudeau would say. Just like a eucalyptus tree grows in Australia, that the original people, sometimes called the Aboriginal, emerged from that area like the tree. So the culture, as Pat McCabe says, is the manifestation of Mother Earth through people in any given place. So when you begin this epistemological way of coming to knowing process in the worldview of kinship and relationality, rather than dominance and transactionality, you're beginning to lay a different foundation of what we can build the house from. And then you can start the process of pragmatic implementation and redesign. But until that point, right, and Original Living Responsibilities does all of it with the elders. So bringing in wisdom councils, bringing in all of this sort of stuff. So once you start that educational process, unlearning and then relearning, because like my teacher Kumu says, if you don't empty the coconut, you can't fill it with anything else. So you got to unlearn something first before you put other stuff in. And there's a Zen parable that describes something similar. So from the educational inoculation, what you start to do is then build towards and with that worldview, with the consulting, with the pragmatic implementation, with the systems redesign, with all of these things that we can do so that the genetic coding of the organization is rooted in kinship as opposed to dominant hegemony. And then you actually start to truly innovate, and then you can actually start to truly evolve. And then eventually you recognize that your evolution is a revelation of what's already here. And that's the true transformation of this emerging paradigm.
They can find you on the website, Original Living Responsibilities. Is that
Yep.
the website?
originallivingresponsibilities.org.
.org. Because I think the work that we're almost at the end of our podcast, Ryan, and I still have a few simple questions which I would like you to answer with, if you can, with one phrase.
Is a phrase a word or is a phrase many words?
Phrases many words with maybe a comma, but ends with a point.
Okay.
Consciousness is
The recognition of interconnection,
silence brings
creativity,
when the heart speaks.
The mind listens.
When I think of joy, I think of
Me.
if I could tell my younger self one thing, it would be,
Keep going.
and last one, let me just see. I feel most alive when.
Alive.
Beautiful.
Those are good. I like that.
Thank you very much, Ryan, for your wisdom, for your knowledge as well. I think you have a lot of knowledge, but you also have a lot of wisdom. Thank you for sharing that. And we only captured a small part of all the work that you do and what people can find out much more on your websites. You travel a lot, you say. Where can people reach you?
I do travel a lot, yeah. So I have a couple different websites. Part of my traveling is to do speaking engagements and to share at
Yeah.
conferences and workshops. I also travel with the elders, various different elders hosting immersions. That's through Sixth Sun immersions. Sixth Sun is the time period that we're entering into from original people's calendars. So I travel hosting immersions with the elders. And then I am a partner in an organization in Sao Paulo in Brazil called DIVA, Design Intentional Value.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it's a futures thinking innovation consultancy that utilizes the ancestral future frame to root us back into a future that can build the brands and companies of the 22nd century. And then I work with the elders and the earth elders, and we do original living responsibilities, which is what we've described here. And I also work currently with an investment organization looking to build an investment post-growth way of doing investments that can build the infrastructure for the emerging paradigm. So,
how many hours are there in your day?
well, I live in a place where time stretches. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank
Yeah.
you. We have so many takeaways from this podcast. The one that I remember now immediately is the I of illness and the we of wellness. Thank you
Yeah, that's
very
a good
much
one.
for being here, James, and hope to talk to you soon again.
Thank you, brother. Aloha.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Becoming Human Again. I hope today's conversation gave you fresh ideas about happiness, success, and what it means to live fully. If you enjoyed the episode, please follow, review, and share. And if you want to dive deeper, check out my book, Becoming Human Again, and connect with me on social media. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep becoming human again.